Hey all, thanks for joining me for this latest episode of our haunted pub crawl. We're still in Wales and we're in the north this time. Just me tonight, and I'll be covering off two pubs, the Star Inn and the Goat Inn. Hope you're enjoying this re visit to our pub crawl. If you are, please drop us a subscribe, drop us a follow, if you like what we're doing and what we talk about on our podcast. We're now over 5 years deep, 350 odd episodes in, going to go bigger and better this year. But if you could do us a real big favor and drop us a review on your podcast app that you listen to, or wherever you're catching this now, drop us a review, drop us a follow, share this out. That really helps us. So now let's move in to the first pub. And this time I'm going to be talking about the Star Inn. Um, Now, this pub is in North Wales this time. We were down south before, in the historic market town of Ruthin, standing inside a pub that has been serving ale since 1639. This is the Star Inn, a Grade 2 listed building that has watched nearly 4 centuries of Welsh history pass through its doors. Low beams, thick stone walls, uneven floors, the kind of place that feels like it remembers things. But what makes this pub different is just not its age, it's what stands directly opposite it. Across the road is Ruthin Jail, a former prison that operated from the 1600s until 1916. Men, women, and even children were incarcerated there. Punishments were brutal by modern standards, and in at least one documented case, final. In 1903, a man named William Hughes was hanged at the jail for the murder of his wife. That execution is a matter of record, not legend, not folklore, but printed in newspapers and preserved in legal archives. When you sit in the Star Inn's front room and look out the window, you are looking straight at a place that held suffering, violence, and death for centuries. Now, here's where it shifts from history to something harder to explain. Recently, the pub has made national headlines when the landlady captured a photograph inside the bar that many believe shows the supernatural presence. In the image, and I'll pop it up on the screen now, behind some customers, there appears to be a swirling mist like formation. It isn't a clean human figure, it isn't a clear face. It's more like a dense, smoky distortion, darker than the surrounding air, although it's almost like a white smoke, with what some observers claim resembles a vague facial shape forming within it. Others describe it as horned, others have called it shadow manifesting out of nothing. Skeptics argue it could be lighting, compression artifacts, smoke, or a lens reflection. Believers say the density and shape are too deliberate. But what makes this image compelling isn't just a visual anomaly, it's the fact that it was taken by somebody who works there in a location already known locally for strange activity. It wasn't a staged ghost hunt, it was a normal night in a pub that has seen 380 years of human emotion. Following the photo, a formal paranormal investigation team visited the Star Inn. During their time inside, they reported unexplained flickering lights despite no identified electrical fault. EMF meters allegedly spiked without obvious source. In a spirit box session, when asked who was present, a voice reportedly came through saying, "I am horrible." That phrase alone is enough to send a shiver down your spine. Whether you believe in spirit communication or think it's pareidolia in radio noises, but it doesn't end there. Staff have spoken about cold spots that don't stay in one place, but seem to move across rooms. Glassware has fallen from shelves without contact. Patrons have described a distinct sensation of someone standing directly behind them, close enough to feel, only to turn and find nothing there. Not a vague atmosphere, a presence. And this is where the theory becomes interesting. Is the Star Inn haunted in its own right, or is it absorbing something from across the street? Ruth in jail housed prisoners awaiting execution. It held people at their lowest points. fear, regret, anger, despair. If you subscribe to the idea that places can imprint emotional energy, then a prison operating for over 250 years would be saturated with it. And the Star Inn has stood opposite that energy since the 17th century. Some believe spirits prefer warmth, light, and human presence, not cold, empty cells. If someone lingered, would it remain in the jail or cross the road to a pub where laughter, conversation, and life continue night after night? The mist image is what brought national attention, but the ongoing reports are what sustain the legend. And whether you view it as residual energy, intelligent haunting, environmental contamination from a historically traumatic site, or simply a trick of the light, there is something undeniably heavy about drinking in a place that has overlooked centuries of justice, punishment, and final moments. So tonight, as we raise a glass in the Star Inn, ask yourself this. When you feel someone watching, is it just the atmosphere of history? Or is there something here that never quite checked out? So now we head deep to the heart of Snowdonia, to a village that already feels like it belongs to legend. Nestled between mountain rivers and dense woodland lies Beddgelert, a famous place for one of Wales's most tragic stories, the tale of Gelert the faithful dog. But just a short walk from that legendary grave sits another place steeped in history and mystery, the Goat Inn. The Goat Inn has stood in this village since the 18th century, originally operating as a coaching inn for travellers crossing the rugged mountain routes of North Wales. In those days, the journey through Snowdonia was not an easy one. Roads were rough, weather could turn in minutes, and travellers often arrived exhausted, cold, and sometimes injured. Inns like this were not just pubs, they were safe havens, a place to warm up beside the fire, take shelter from storms, and rest before continuing the journey through the mountains. But places that see centuries of travellers also collect centuries of stories. Over the years, guests and staff at the Goat Inn have reported a number of strange experiences, many of which seem to centre around the pub's main fireplace. Several witnesses have described seeing a man standing near the hearth late at night. A figure is usually described as tall, dressed in dark clothing, and completely silent. What makes these sightings unsettling is that the figure appears solid at first, almost like a regular person standing by the fire, until the witness looks again and realizes that nobody else should be there. In some cases, the figure has simply vanished. One staff member reportedly described walking through the bar after closing time and seeing what they thought was a guest standing quietly by the fireplace. Assuming someone had wandered in late, they turned away for a moment to check behind the bar. When they looked back, the man was gone. No sound of footsteps, no door opening, nothing. The activity isn't limited to the bar either. Guests staying in the room above the pub have reported hearing footsteps moving slowly along the corridor late at night. The footsteps are often described as deliberate, almost like someone pacing. In several accounts, the footsteps have stopped directly outside a bedroom door, close enough for guests to feel as though someone is standing there on the other side. There are also reports of cold patches forming in certain areas of upstairs hallway. Guests walking down the corridor have described suddenly stepping into a pocket of cold air that seems completely out of place in an otherwise warm building. Sometimes the chill appears to move, as though whatever is causing it isn't staying in place. And when you consider the history of the location, it's easy to see why these stories have grown over the years. The pub has stood through centuries of travellers, storms, celebrations, arguments, and quiet nights in the mountains. Thousands of people have passed through its doors, each bringing their own stories, emotions, and experiences with them. In places like Snowdonia, where the landscape itself feels ancient and powerful, The line between creaking building, history, and folklore can sometimes blur. Are these sightings simply tricks of the mind, or an old building creaking? Or is it the atmosphere of centuries old inn playing with our expectations? Or could something from the past still linger in the warmth of the fireplace long after the travellers it once served have gone? Whatever the explanation, the Goat Inn remains one of those places where history feels close, perhaps a little closer than you might expect when you sit down to drink by the fire. So if you ever find yourself in Beddgelert, raising a glass in this coaching inn, just remember, if you catch someone standing quietly by the fireplace, it might just not be another guest.